What's up, guys? Welcome to the Unreasonable Life podcast, where we talk to entrepreneurs and leaders building businesses that put service first, integrity, and legacy first. I'm your host, Michael. In each episode, we're going to be hearing from people who've chosen to build boldly, to serve deeply, and to grow without losing themselves. Today, I have a very special guest with me. I have DePiro, Pete DePiro. After I just asked you if you want to beat him, Pete DePiro with me today. He is the owner of Integrated Fitness and Performance Training out in Silicon Valley, California. He has been 30 years as a personal trainer in his own solo practice, is a multiple six-figure earner in his business, only working 4 days a week. And he has come today to share some of his amazing knowledge that he's learned over the last 30 years. Excuse my dog in the background. My son's getting picked up for a play date or whatever you call that today. Pete, man, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. It's great to see you, Michael.
Brother, we met back, what, has it been almost 2 years? No,
Been
it's only been
almost a year.
a year over at FST down in Arizona. You've been an FST practitioner for 10 years now. Level 4. We're the first level 4 group in the world. No big deal. No big. But yeah, man, I wanted to jump on with you here today because, you and I got to talking at class, just about business, about life in general. And from that, I could tell Pete knows what he's talking about, right? You have a business model that I don't think I've heard anybody else use. And I thought maybe we get you on here and talk about some of the ways that you've been successful over the last 30 years and your journey to getting there. And maybe some of your struggles, and maybe it can add some value to people who are listening. So
Sounds
thanks for
great.
jumping on, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
So, I mean, let's go back, man. Like what got you into personal training in the first place?
The technical answer is post-college, so on the one hand, it seems like a natural fit because my bachelor's degree is in exercise science, but in reality, post-college graduation, had been involved in different things in school, didn't know what I was going to do, and literally saw an ad in the newspaper for, a gym was hiring. One of the big national chains was hiring. So I went down there and applied and comically like hoped I could get an interview or hoped they might be interested in me. I knew nothing other than, my love of going to the gym. I knew nothing about the business side. And so I was like, I don't, there's no way. And then didn't realize that it's a very low barrier to entry. So having a degree in the field, they were like, please come on in.
Right.
And
When you
so
did
it went from
when
there.
you when you did get into the industry, you mentioned just a second ago about how you weren't really aware of the business side of things.
Yeah.
Did you go right away into your own business, or you said you started working somewhere else first, or were you trying to
Yeah.
do both at the
I
same time?
started, no, I started at a big national chain, like I said. And it was
Did you jump in right into your own practice on the side?
pretty quickly I did, just because I quickly learned how incongruous sort of the corporate fitness world was with how personal training is, the
Mhm.
relationships we have, and sort of the corporations aren't that concerned about the clients. They aren't that concerned. In fact, oftentimes in contract paperwork, when you work for a corporate gym, your title is not trainer, your title is just salesperson. And
Hmm.
so really you're just an extension of the sales team, and numbers are what's important. Service is not necessarily that important depending on where you are. And so I quickly started getting exposed to that side of it, and it wasn't a great fit. And so I started taking clients, like in-home clients, and building a little side hustle in that way. And then I think must have had some sort of little primitive entrepreneurial streak, because I started trying to think of like, what are ways that I could build up, my own business, and what kind of things can I do to keep myself employed without being an employee. And tried being an employee a couple times in a couple different contexts, and it really was a miserable experience every time. It didn't end very well because it just wasn't a good fit for what I felt for what we do, and
What
also
a,
the finances of it, trying to build a career.
right. What about the experience working for somebody else was so miserable?
So there's the what I mentioned, which is like when you're in a big gym, there's often you're just part of the sales team and it's all about sales, it's all about numbers. It's not about great service, it's not about personal relationships. Then I also was at like small boutique studio where it was all personal training, and so
Mm,
it was very personal and very familial and a great environment, great service. Then you get into the finances of it, where when you're working as an employee, the norm is that the facility is taking the lion's share of the revenue from training, and the trainer is getting very little. And so a trainer either can't survive or they need to work an obscene number of hours to get by. And so, for one reason or another, it was always a little bit of a misfit. And I tried, while I'll go into management, I tried going into management where I trained some, but also managed a training staff. And inevitably, you'd have that financial issue I described where the trainer's getting a smaller cut of a training session, but that pay would be greater than what you got paid for your management time. So you'd be
mm.
losing money by being a manager when you'd think that should make me more money.
A lot of times it doesn't work out like that. It seems
No,
like, yeah.
no, it did not for me. And so ultimately, um, I left the industry once thinking this isn't going to work. And then I went back. And then I just realized this is what I like to do, I want to do, I love it, but I'm going to have to figure out how to make a career out of it. And so that became, I had to figure out the business end of it for myself so that it would work as a career.
So before you went in to becoming a personal trainer, did you have any prior business knowledge or experience in entrepreneurship or business or sales in general?
None whatsoever. And like I said, fitness, I knew nothing about the business side of the fitness industry and certainly hadn't really done anything entrepreneurial. I mean, I went from high school straight into college and did the standard sort of internships, things of that nature. I was teaching in the classroom a lot through my experiences. I was in AmeriCorps, which was Bill Clinton's like domestic Peace Corps program. So it was pretty conventional high school, college path. And there was, if I had a job, it was just a little something on the side to make money while I was in school, but nothing entrepreneurial, certainly.
So I definitely want to get into like, because of course I'm super passionate about customer service, about hospitality. The
Hmm.
Unreasonable Life, literally that name, it came from a book called Unreasonable Hospitality, which absolutely inspires me to be the one of like to just push my level of service constantly. But before we get into that, the sales aspect of things, do you find that to be important? Like what you learned about sales at these places you were working for, was that important in your growth?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for better or worse, and the good and the bad, I learned, maybe what didn't work for me, what I didn't like, and I also learned over time what did work for me and what I did and do like. So I think it's all critical in terms of compiling education so that you find what works for you. And I do think that it's important to figure out what works for you because there's a personality piece. That's one of the
Mm.
challenges with you. You're a salesperson at a facility, and here's how we sell. But you have your own unique personality. Mine happened to be growing up a shy introvert. So Mr. Outgoing salesy guy just, it wasn't a good fit. So I had to figure out what worked for me.
And in my opinion, I think introverts are they're better at sales long term because they typically ask more questions,
Hmm.
right? And it's just more natural for them to listen than it is to just like start throwing up on people verbally,
Yeah. Yeah, that
right?
sounds like a good perspective, and I would probably tend to agree with that. And are more my experience is there's a greater tendency to want to have a more personal connection with somebody. And so if you're seeing new people, they don't just represent a possible sale. It's just a new person that you're curious about. And oh, yeah, also, do you want to engage with my services? But also, it's just somebody new to meet and find out about. And that can be a positive approach to sales because you can set them at ease. You can be more engaging because you're not fixated on trying to sell something. And then I tried
100%.
to come up with a structure that didn't involve you need to buy a package of this, that, or the other before you leave here today. And so I didn't have to be so sales oriented in the end, and I don't now, I don't think.
Yeah. I wish more businesses understood the power of relationships versus just always going after the money. To me, sales and money is like a byproduct of giving people great service and a great product,
Hmm.
right? And I think like as service providers, right, your product is the training that you're doing, right, and your service is like how you do that, right, or hospitality is how you deliver that product,
Hmm.
right, or how you make people feel in the process, right. um, and I don't think enough businesses put emphasis on that, of serving people well. And we're going to get into that a little bit. But before we do, how did you? So you went from working for someone.
Hmm.
You're like, all right, this absolutely sucks, and not making enough money, to now I need to go get my build a clientele, and you have no
Yeah.
business knowledge. How did you get your first 5 clients, your first 10 clients?
So in the gym, it was, some combination of either the gym giving me clients or getting lucky and selling somebody some training. And then from there, I think the seeds of what has become a career long approach were probably planted because I didn't have this genius idea to start doing in-home training and start a side hustle. Opportunities started presenting, and I think it was because I was building pretty genuine connections with people. And one of the things I always did was to be really open and transparent with people about the
Right,
business side, the training side, whatever it might be. So that led to opportunities. And then that started really leading to referrals from very early on. Even I've had a couple independent businesses. The current one is 25 years old, I guess. But in the early days, it was like employee, independent business kind of back and forth. When I was independent, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was able to somehow get some clients. I even at one point landed a corporate contract. So I installed some corporate fitness sites and was training, but that was just all connecting with my clients and having a genuine relationship with them. And so they
right.
were comfortable referring people to me or bringing me new opportunities like, hey, somebody I know has this company and they want corporate fitness and wellness and they don't have it. Would you be
Yeah.
interested? So
But do you know other trainers, right, who are doing training, right? They're doing the same thing that you're doing, but are not getting opportunities brought to them. Why do you think? Do you know people like that?
absolutely.
Okay, so why do you think you're getting opportunities brought to you versus somebody else who is not?
The simple answer is I think well, two things, the genuineness of the connections with people. So they feel there's a lot of trust, a lot of dependability. So they're comfortable making referrals. And I do think on the front end of it all, like when I help mentor people now on the front end of your career, you need to get really good at what you do.
Hmm.
So I'm in a profession that has a very low barrier to entry. By the end of next weekend, you could have completed a certification and you can be a trainer. Hop
I
online,
might
take a class. So
I might go do
I
it.
I spent a lot of time and energy and money trying my first and only goal early in my career before even getting to like surviving and making a living was if I'm going to do this, I want to be the best at it. And
Hmm.
so it was a lot of education, a lot of investment in myself, which showed people how serious I was about what I was doing and about trying to get better at it and having the humility and transparency to say, I'm at the front end of my career. I'm new to this. So I'm not the best, but I'm going to keep learning to become good at it. And you get to be the beneficiary of that if you engage with me now on the front end of it. So I think those things are critical. And then there's this. sliding scale that people fall on where they take different approaches. I've seen people like trying to leverage Groupon, Facebook ads, things like that, and they're able to get a lot of people in the door and they're terrible at any sort of retention, or they
Mm.
do these steep discounts. And then it's like, well, now you need to pay the real amount that I charge and nobody wants to do it. Or it's a personality thing and they're not so engaging. Or trustworthy or whatever it might be to make clients feel really comfortable sticking around, or the skill set. It's just like, I don't know if this trainer is that good.
What do you think, based on what you've observed over the last 30 years, what do you
Hmm.
think is the biggest thing that stops people from growing a clientele? Like if you had to narrow it down to, I know there's many things, but what's the number one that comes to mind?
Probably somewhere in there, in all of that, if I was picking one thing, it would be the biggest thing where I could think of all these different offshoots that all come back to one thing. At the core, it would be ego and humility and getting those in check and managing them. And as a result, then being transparent, being genuine, being engaging, being trustworthy, being dependable, because you're addressing those things.
So you mentioned trust a couple of times. Are you intentionally doing anything to build trust, or is there something you're doing that just comes natural to you?
It probably comes natural at this point. A lot of answers to these questions that you bring up, I have the benefit of a retrospective on my career and analyzing my choices after the fact, whereas in the moment I was just making a choice right here and now, and I wasn't sure maybe what I was doing. Um, so I think now it might be more natural, but it is being transparent, having humility. So I'm as likely to learn from my clients as they are from me, certainly about everything in life in the world, because many of our clients are some of the smartest people in the world. So they have a lot to teach us. We just happen to have information in this one area, but also in this era of technology, social media, the internet, AI. Now we have like functional medicine, which is exploding. People are doing a lot of research on their own and learning a lot. And so when they come to me with stuff related to health, fitness, wellness, there's no reason why they might not have reasonable information that I should take in. And so not shutting them down, and again, not being egotistical about I'm the expert here, establishes trust because I'm willing to be transparent about what I know, what I don't know. And so I think it's more of just a natural byproduct of how I engage with people at this point. And then if there's anything technical, it's just around business stuff. Like, here's how my business works. Here's how billing works. If you ever think I screwed something up, just let me know. I'll fix it. Like, there's no smoke and mirrors. It's all pretty above board.
Right. I love that. Is there something that you did differently in your sessions over the years that really builds trust and gets clients talking about you?
I would say it would go back to what I said about early in my career, being fixated on being really good at what I did.
Hmm.
And the business I have now, when I first started it, I was at a huge box gym, 30 something thousand square feet. We were still coming out of the bodybuilding era. A lot of the trainers were these like older bodybuilders, steroided out, a lot of drug addicts, zero education, but they had become trainers because when they were bodybuilders, they looked great. People would walk up and say, "Hey, can you help me?" Um, and so I went into this gym and was a new fish, yeah, and a little fish in a big pond, and also now literally physically one of the smaller people, even though I'm 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, because you have all these bodybuilders. But I came in with an education. I kept educating myself. I was walking in with a rolling duffel bag full of like functional training equipment because this gym was kind of outdated in terms of their equipment.
Right, right.
And I just stuck around. And so initially it was kind of rough and I was kind of maligned, and then people saw I was sticking around. And after a little while, all of a sudden, all the customers would come up to me to ask questions, and then they'd come up to me to ask to train, because it was obvious that I was both educated and continuing to get educated. And then for existing clients, they saw that too, that I was constantly, I got to leave for a week. I'm going to this facility to get mentored by somebody. I'm going here to a class. I'm going here to a conference.
Hmm.
And so it was trying to be really good at what I did in order to stand out, and trying to look professional and act professional, always being on time, always, relatively speaking, for being in a gym, being dressed professionally, et cetera, et cetera.
Love that. Do you think it's important? So, like in the beginning, my typical advice for people in the service, like service provider industry, massage therapy, maybe even personal training, aesthetics, all these areas that I typically speak to, I think that they should go work for somebody in the beginning of their career
Mhm.
so that they can get the experience under their belt. Um, do you agree with that? And do you think that that is necessary? Not necessarily working for somebody, but how else would they, besides going to all these conferences, get the reps under their belt? Because
Yeah.
what I'm seeing is it's very difficult to get good at what you do and like hone in on your craft and refine that and be really talented there, and try to worry about growing a business and doing sales and marketing and service and follow-ups and all the other things that come along with running a business. Very difficult to get good at both at the same time. Do you think so?
I, I agree with you. And I do, in fact, I've had occasion to mentor a number of either young trainers or people who want to come into the field and want some guidance. And rather than saying, I'm at a private facility now that's all training, not like a big public gym, and I will say, this is not a good place for you to start. You should start as an employee. You should start somewhere that will give you clients. And also, to the, you know, managing how much you need to process and the learning curves you're dealing with, go somewhere where you can focus on becoming good at the craft. And I try and be on top of the health clubs in the area and recommend one that I think is reputable and maybe that provides in-house education. So they
Mm,
have access to a lot of education. They have a gym that's going to provide them with clients, because if you don't know what you're doing, you're not going to just land yourself clients. So I often recommend that people go start as an employee, get skills, build up a clientele, and then at some point consider going independent. That also creates a good financial arc to go on, because
yeah.
there's still that split where they're going to get a lot less of the revenue when they train.
Hmm.
But then what will happen is that if they build up a clientele and they can survive and get by, when they go to leave and go independent, they will take inevitably some of their clients with them, because their clients are loyal to them at that point. But they will lose some who just want to stay at the gym, either because they like the gym or it's a geographical thing that's close to home. That's where their membership is, whatever it may be. But they're going to flip that financial model. And now the rent they're going to pay is a lot lower. They're going to keep the lion's share of the money. So they will only need to retain a fraction of their clientele typically to make the same or more money. So it creates a smooth launch into being independent versus starting at zero and trying to be independent from there.
Do you think that was a necessary step for you to work for somebody else, even though it was terrible and like not fun and you didn't make that much money? Was that a necessary step for your success in the beginning?
Yes, absolutely. 'Cause I did get a lot of education, even the sales education, figuring out what worked and what didn't work for me, seeing big corporate gyms and how they operated, working for a small regional chain, so slightly different dynamics, but also still kind of corporate-y. And then being at private studios, there were really important things to learn at each of those stops,
Mm.
that I think were critical. And in
Yeah.
the end, they created what I just described. Or when I ultimately left and went independent for the last time, which leads us to now, 25 years later, I took a fraction of my clientele, but instantly got a raise because I was flipping the financial model from what I was getting paid at that facility. So it was critical, and I had learned enough about what I needed to do to try and make a career out of it on the business side.
I love that. I love that, man. Congratulations on your success, bro.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I appreciate it.
Congratulations. Okay, so is there ever a time, I'm sure like when dealing with customer service, right? Is there ever a time, my dog barking, where you have to balance, right? Like what a customer wants versus what you think they need,
Hmm.
right? And maybe they are expecting a certain result and it's not possible. Like how do you have that conversation with them?
I think there's a couple answers to that. One, what you described is exactly what has historically been discussed in the training world, because we have people come in for different reasons. Historically, if you go back some generations, it was almost entirely aesthetic. It was body composition, it was weight loss. But as we learned more about people's function, their movement patterns, their overall wellness, pain, things like that, we could identify, well, you need this. But they came in saying, I want to look like this. And they're two different things. So we spend a lot of time historically talking about giving people what they want and packaging it in what they need, or giving them what they need, but packaging it in what. So striking a balance with the actual service and the training so that we're working on both things at the same time. The more challenging part is the people coming in with unrealistic expectations. And that is trying to have honest, open conversations with them, but also not being too negative. You can say, here's what we can do to work on it, but here's, maybe what your expectations should be. But I've seen instances where somebody comes in this example would be very male oriented, a male who's well into adulthood, and they come in and they have a goal. It's like, I want to put on this much muscle. I want to do it in this amount of time. I want it. And the trainer's like, so do you want to start taking steroids or not? Oh, no, no, I want to do it naturally. Well, it's not going to happen. So having that honest conversation is sometimes necessary. What we also find is people think they know what they want, but they're inexperienced. So when they come in and start training and start getting results, and it's results that they were unaware that they could achieve, they really enjoy them, and their perspective on what they want or what they need may shift.
Hmm.
So it's not, we need to make sure we don't just dismiss somebody out of hand because they come in and they say, I have this aesthetic goal, and you don't think it's realistic. Because once they start training and they feel what it feels like to get stronger, to have less pain, to move better, maybe to look differently, but they're more muscular or whatever the case may be, and they didn't expect that they would like that so much. Their expectations and what they're interested in may change as they become more knowledgeable and experience progress. So
Awesome. So is this all a part of, do you have like this as a part of a sales process, or I like to call it a service process? Um, or are you out there just winging it? Like how important, do you have like processes written down?
no,
You don't.
it is you could call it winging it. I want to talk to somebody and get an understanding of what's going on with them. But I'm also aware I try and pass this on to trainers that I talk to. If you arrange to have a consultation with somebody at a gym, you don't know what their expectation is when they hear I'm going in for a consultation. If they walk in workout clothes with a water bottle, they were thinking they're going to exercise. And if you tell them to sit down at a desk or a table and you talk their ear off for however long about your business, your process, or their goal, whatever it might be, you missed a very obvious cue about what their expectation was. So I want to be open to reading the situation. When the person comes in and they're in their work clothes and their badge from work is hanging off their belt, they want to sit down and have a chat. They want to see the facility. They're not expecting to work out that day. And so I'm going to take it as it comes. And then if they're really new and they want to start moving, then we'll start moving in a way that's very easy, where I can also chat with them and have conversations about this kind of stuff so they can feel like, oh, I'm starting out working out right out of the gate. But also, he wants to know what my goals are, what I want to work on, what issues I have, what my history is. And so,
So it sounds like you do work from a process. It's just in your head and not on paper,
yeah, yeah, it's a little,
or a frame. You have a framework of how you'd like
yeah, it's
things to
this,
go.
it is true. And it's the same as training where clients ask, like, do you plan every workout? And it's like, well, we have templates baked into our head. So I don't
Mhm.
need to have your workout written out, but there's a template in my head that's operating at all times, and I'm going to plug and play to create the workout. So there is a process. I also know what I like and dislike. And when I go see any, remotely healthcare or wellness adjacent professional these days, and there's a stack of intake forms, and I remember back to a client of mine that I referred out for ART once when he was having a little elbow tendonitis. And he sent me a text, and he literally said, I just want her to rub my elbow. Do I really need to tell her this, that? And because it was this, the intake was through the roof. So knowing that I don't enjoy that, I don't want to give somebody like a multi-page intake form that I may or may not do something with afterwards. So it is, there is maybe a process, but it's somewhat improvisational, and it's not a hard copy type of thing. Like, here's all my paperwork and here's all my forms. I just don't do that.
Awesome, simplified.
Hmm.
All right. Well, it sounds like you've been mentioning customer service quite a bit. How important do you think customer service, or even hospitality? And
Hmm.
I think there's a difference. How important is that? And do you want me to explain the difference of what I think it is before we get
Between
into that?
service and hospitality,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a differentiation between the two.
Well, I mean, I did get this from Will Guidara, but his definition is service is what you do, right?
Okay.
It's it's uh it's even your attitude around what you do, right? Great service is greeting people at the door with a smile, um, but all of these things are like the bare minimum, right? And hospitality is how you make people feel in the process of that.
Hmm.
Do you make them feel like an individual or not?
Hmm.
Right? Does it make them feel like this is specific to them
Hmm.
or not? If it's not, then it's great service. If it does, then it's hospitality,
Hmm. Fantastic differentiation or distinction.
right?
And I would say
It's
both sound.
these
Hmm.
one size fits one moments is hospitality
Hmm. Well,
versus
I have something that I always try and describe to trainers that maybe fits that relative to making them feel like an individual and it's about them. We have the age-old sports saying, on time is late. And I always tell people that about our work. One, you should never be late. You should be on time, but you should really be early, because even if your client comes a little bit early, I've always had this perspective, and it may be a little bit extreme. When a client comes in and they see their trainer in the facility ready to go, it elicits that feeling of they're here for me right now. In fact, I just had somebody the other day who I had run to the bathroom, and he's like, I didn't know what to do. You're usually just sitting out on the floor waiting for me, like out on the turf where he warms up. And I had run to the bathroom. He's like, I didn't know what to do. You're always sitting right here waiting for me. And I tell people, if your client is in the facility, even if they come in like 10 minutes early to warm up, or and they see you like wander in the back door or wander in the front door, even if you're a couple minutes early, somewhere in the back of their head, there could be this, they didn't start thinking about me until right now, right when we're about to start the session. But if they walk in, like you said,
mm,
you're greeting them at the door, you're ready to go. There can be, even if it's not entirely the case, they can have this little bit of a feeling of they were waiting for me, they're ready for me, and their focus is on me, not their focus was on anything else in life. And at the last minute, they're going to switch gears because they owe me their time and attention right now because I'm paying. And it's just a small difference. You could still be on time, but if they see you walking in and like, okay, let's go, they think you haven't given one thought to my session. And it may be you're already there and you haven't given one thought to their session, but the appearance is you're ready and waiting for them.
Pete, I asked you earlier, what are some of the things that you feel like you did differently over the years? This is one of those things, man. Right?
Thank
Like
you.
this is one of those things. This is the small things I'm talking about that
Mhm.
like are maybe subtle differences to you,
Mhm.
but make all the difference in the customer experience. So
Yeah, I would agree.
I absolutely love that.
And I think generally being, I've had clients where it's a little bit comical. They're in a good marriage, they have a family, and they will tell me, and they have a very full life, and they'll tell me, you're the most dependable person in my life. And it gives me a chuckle, but at the same time, that's my goal,
Is it
is to
rampant?
be, go
Go ahead.
ahead.
No,
No,
is
you
to
go.
be is it rampant in your industry as well? I feel like I'm a massage therapist in my field. There is a brand almost that massage therapists are flaky.
Mhm.
Do you find that to be true in the fitness arena as well?
I probably don't have a good cross section of exposure anymore because I've been at the same private facility for a long time. When I was at a
Mhm.
commercial health club, it, I mean, it was certainly going back generations, it was a problem. Um, and we, collectively try and provide better service and be a little bit higher end facility. And so we don't have issues with that as a stereotype, but there may be that person again who's like always walking in right on time, and so to me that might be problematic. To them, it's fine. I think rather than industry specific, there would be the broader, cultural, because in my personal life, it's also, everybody knows in my life, I'm going to be everywhere. I was sitting here half an hour before we started talking. I will be everywhere on time. And I don't have a problem with being the person that has to wait versus that, oh, I don't want to have to sit and wait for something. So I'm always going to be a little bit late. And that's not acceptable to me. So in my social life, it's almost like my professional life. If you're going to be somewhere to meet me, then I owe it to you to be there on time or early. And so it may be less of a industry specific or professional thing and more just, do we have a cultural issue with stuff like that?
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. Here I am jumping on at 3:30 for our call, yelling at kids in the background. I love it, bro. I love that. I love that. Are there any other instances of like great customer service that you can reference from your experience over the years? Or maybe even some situations that weren't great, not necessarily with you, or maybe they were, that you could have done better, or maybe you've seen somebody else could have done better.
There's probably lots of examples. I think we touched on one earlier where a client of mine had some products from our facility, and
Hmm.
one piece of it wasn't working quite right, and so I brought it to our facility owner to ask if we could buy a replacement, and found out that it was warranted. And so I left it. She said, you take a new one and I'll turn it in for the warranty. So I took a new one and gave it to my client. And then the next week, she said, it's not actually broken. It wasn't working quite right, but I can't send this back as a warranty to get it replaced. So
Hmm.
here, take it back. And I think the premise was give it back to the client and get the new one back. And there was no way I was going to go ask the client for the new one back. So for me, it was, if we need to pay now for that new one that I took thinking it was a warranty, then I'm going to pay for it. I'm not going to go ask my client, say, hey, we gave you this as a warranty replacement. Turns out we couldn't warranty this. So give me the new one back and I'll give you your old one.
Hmm.
That's an example where just the service piece of that was, I'm not going to do that. So if there's a price to pay, I'll pay that. I'll buy the new one and let her keep it, and we'll deal with it that way. So that's probably an example of a down in the weeds.
Where did that come
The
from? Like, where did you get the idea to do, like, why not? Why do that versus just get the product back or tell the client to handle it?
I don't
Why
know that I'm
eat the
entirely
cost?
sure. Yeah, I don't know that I'm entirely sure, but I just think it's always about having going back to ego and humility, a huge appreciation. I've spent almost my entire career not working for somebody, making a good living in one of the most expensive places in the country, and getting to enjoy life and do a job that I love and that I'm passionate about, and is all because of those clients and their trust in me and them working with me. So I I it's grounded in my appreciation for them and doing whatever I can for them, whether it's in the gym, outside of the gym. And so going back to service in general, a lot of service to me may fall outside of the gym, and not trying to like find a way to squeeze every nickel out of it. So it can be during COVID, I was dropping groceries off at people's homes who were too scared to leave the house because then they couldn't find X, Y, or Z on Instacart. So I'd go to the store and grab it and drop it off. Or I had a client who was last year new to hunting. And so his brother wanted to take him hunting and sent him a hunting rifle. So I took him to the rifle range and helped him sight in his rifle. And so it's doing whatever I can for them to let them know how much I appreciate what they do for me by facilitating this career I have. And ultimately, to my benefit, I end up being friends with them and having great relationships with them. And so they really enrich my life on the whole. So I always want to have their best interests at heart and always err on the side of what's best for them, what's most fair for them.
What do you say to people who might say, like, hear that? First off, I freaking love that. Right? Like, that is unreasonable, right? That is what I'm talking about, right? But what do you say to people who are like, no, business is supposed to be business. This is too personal now, you know?
I probably would just disagree relative to my field, relative to your field. These are service businesses. There's something in my industry early in my career when I would go to education, the educators, the instructors used to say, we're in a service business. We're here to take care of people. We didn't get in this to be rich. We got in it to take care of people and because we love this. Um, and that in my industry, that got lost somewhere along the way as the industry got really fixated on how can I leverage everything for more money, to the detriment of providing quality service, quality training, whatever. So I would just disagree, um, because I think it's, but it's also, yeah, I do think I know trainers who have a business and everybody's kept at arm's length. They only know their clients so well. The clients only know them so well. Their lives are very private, and that's how they choose to go about doing things. But you're at work more than you're anywhere else in your life. So I always find that it's a huge missed opportunity to have more very fulfilling relationships and to learn a ton. To have these people again, I'm so grateful. I feel like I train some of the smartest people in the world, and I'm telling them what to do in their workout, but I get to ask them questions about anything and everything and get educated day in and day out about all kinds of wild stuff. And so that's how I benefit. And yeah, I think.
Well, it's interesting in so many other industries, right? Like taking clients out, entertaining clients, going out to eat, going to dinners, and building relationships and connections is such a big part of what they do. But for some reason in the service industry, it's not,
Hmm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
where it feels like honestly our business is so much more personal, but yet we don't do the things that other businesses do to entertain their clients and cater to their clients, or like you're doing with your clients, taking them groceries, which is amazing service, above and beyond, right? Like I have a
Yeah, I think
lot. Go ahead.
I think you make a great point, and I've never framed it like that or thought of it like that. And I think it's an example. there are things in industries that are done differently when we could look at another field and say, why aren't we doing it like that? So I think you bring up a great point, because there are so many industries where it's a critical part, that whether it's networking or relationship building is so important. I think, my business model, the actual financial model, was looking at other similar services, but that are different businesses from ours. So like when my child was taking music lessons, exact same business model as mine. You have sessions however many times a week, you pay for your sessions. But in that music instruction world, the instructors say, this is tuition. You pay it monthly. It's the same every month. You either come to your sessions or you don't. And I was like, why is my business not like that? Why is our industry? They're the exact same business model. They've just somehow evolved this. Um, they call it tuition. It's more like school. It's more like education, but it is an identical business model. And so that's part of me trying to figure out how to make this a career. Was I needed to take the financial and billing piece and make it look more like another business that had the same model but billed differently or handled finances differently. And so your example, I think, is a great one. It may just be a mistake that we haven't looked to other fields and said, why aren't we relationship building like they do over there?
I think most of the growth that happens in a certain field comes from looking at other businesses and what they do.
Hmm.
Very rarely do we look at our own field and create innovation. You
Yeah,
know,
you got me thinking.
yeah. So I like that. Tell me more about this business model you have, like where you're. So I would say most traditional trainers, you buy like a package, right?
Yeah,
Buy a package, and then you use this package over a certain amount of time,
correct. And I just
but that's not
basically,
how yours is set up.
no, I long ago, it wasn't going to work for me. Um, because largely initially because of the volatility it creates with training. You're often seeing people 2 3 times a week, so it's very frequent. So you have a certain number of cancellations each week, people traveling, et cetera, et cetera. You have the when school's out and people go on vacation, you have a big drop off. It was too erratic to be sustainable long term in my mind. And particularly having a perspective when I was younger that I wanted a relatively conventional lifestyle of like home, family, being part of a community. Is that going to work if my business is doing this and my income is doing this and it's super erratic? So I just borrowed, tweaked a little bit over time, but ended up with a model like I described with the music teacher, which is just, here's what you pay me each month based on whether you come in 1 2 3 4 times a week. And that's it. And use it or lose it. Come in, don't come in. But you're paying me the same every month so that I have stability. And the trade-off is they're not paying the full amount that I would charge hourly if I was just charging per session. So there's a trade-off to make it fair. What I originally did was if you trained once a week, I would take that hourly rate, multiply it out over the 52 weeks of the year, get the total you owed me for the year. But rather than doing 52 weeks, I would do 48 weeks.
Hmm.
So I gave you 4 free weeks. Then I took that amount, divided it by the 12 months, and there's your monthly amount. So it's fair to me, it's fair to you, but it created a stability that was critical to making a living out of this and making it a career. I don't spend my days. I see the stress on coworkers when they're going through their calendar, adding up cancellations and things like that, because they don't know
So
what their income will be week over week or month over month.
so you're signing them up for a year every time? Is it 3 month increments, 6 months? Is it always a year?
No, there's nothing like that. It's just they're paying. I will explain how I came up with the monthly rate, but it's just, here's what you're going to pay me monthly.
Oh,
And
okay.
if you quit next month, so be it. But to some of what I think you may have asked me about outside of this or earlier, um, just explaining that sort of presents a perspective that I engage with people long term. I don't do this come in for a week or 2 weeks. It's basically, look, you're putting me on payroll now in your life. Build me into your budget, and away we go. And so it's going to be rare if somebody wants to come in and train for a month or two and leave, that so be it. But when they see the way I bill, the person that's thinking I'm only coming for a month or two, that doesn't usually jive with their personality. They want the person that says, I'm just going to sell you 10 sessions. And then they feel safe about, I'll use those and then I'll decide again, versus what I present sort of feels like you're either in this or you're not. You're committing now going forward. And so there is no you're signing up for a quarter or a year or a half year or anything like that.
I like that. I might steal this. Because I don't think the first time you explained it to me a long time ago, I don't know that I really understood like how you set this up. This gives me a little bit more. I'm gonna see if this is possible for me.
It also makes my administrative life a lot easier, right? I spend very little time on billing and financial stuff because every month everybody gets an invoice for their monthly amount, whatever it might be. And I don't have to, the only time their invoice is changing is if I cancel on them, then there is a per session amount built into their monthly fee, and I'm going to credit them for me canceling on them. But otherwise, it's always the same. So it makes my administrative work pretty easy, and I can then just focus on doing the work and practicing the trade that I'm in.
And nobody you work with has an issue with this. I guess it attracts the people who are going to be in this for a long time, and it detracts anybody that would have an issue with this.
Correct.
So,
Client wise, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in case in point, I have clients that go back over 25 years. I have clients 15 to 20 years. So I'm just a part of their life. They're a part of my life. We've watched each other. I have clients. I train a couple with 4 kids. I trained them through all 4 pregnancies. I've trained all the kids. The kids are all now adults. We're just part of each other's lives.
Do the lines ever get blurred between friends and clients? And do you ever have trouble when that happens? Do you ever have trouble charging them?
No, I don't. It certainly gets blurry in the same way that I've always said that the line between my personal life and my professional life gets blurry because I chose a profession that was and is my recreational life. So, the line's very blurry because what did I love to do? Go to the gym and work out and do fitness related activities. What did I start doing for work? The same thing. So it's a blurry line. And with clients, it's blurry in that I have friendships with them. I will socialize with them. I will go to their kids' bar mitzvahs. I will go to their kids' sports games. So you could call that blurry, but they're still getting their bill every month, and they understand that, and I understand that. And to that end, they blow me away. And I said how appreciative I am of them. During COVID, I'm in what was one of the most restrictive states in the country, and I was in the most restricted county within the state. So we were closed for a long time. And I had clients who just kept paying because it was part of their budget. Their life hadn't changed. They were still working from home. But they knew that my business had been decimated, and they just kept paying their bill every month. So we're part of each other's lives, for better or worse.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. I really like this business model. I think a lot of people are going to get value out of that, man. So
some people, I think it helps too. There's if you're charging your business or mine, you're charging per session, and somebody sort of budgets their life, you've got a number of months with an extra week. So that expense is going to go up. If they see me 3 times a week and there's a fifth week in the month, that's a lot of money all of a sudden added to that monthly budget. So they can know up front, here's how much I'm paying him every month. It fits in my budget. So I think for some people it's enjoyable's maybe the wrong word, but it's comforting. And they pay at the beginning of every month, just like their mortgage, their car payment, their this, their that. At the beginning of every month, they pay for the month. They're not constantly sending payments, and it doesn't change. So they can count on that, and they can, factor it into their financial lifestyle.
Love it. Very cool, man. So, if you could go back and give yourself advice from when you were just starting out,
hmm
just starting out in your private practice, what would it be?
This is, I thought about this because you had asked me beforehand, and this is where having my advice would be to, in a way, to do what I did, which it sounds egomaniacal, but I have the benefit of, looking back at my career retrospectively, but it would be trying to get really good. It would be doing what I did. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but it was first trying to be really good at my trade. Then it was, um, trying to figure out how to make a career out of it. And there's this element of, and I don't know where it comes from. I maybe romanticize this, this idea of like immigrant work ethic. My grandparents came through Ellis Island from Italy in the early 1900s. My dad was born in the Great Depression. He had kids old, so I got exposed to a different backstory in my life. And, they just did what needed to be done. My dad was in World War II, and I would say, and he wasn't a big military guy, wasn't super macho. And I'd say, why'd you enlist if you're not a big fan of the military? And he was like, they were going to draft me anyway. We all had to go. So why not go enlist? You just did what needed to be done.
Mm.
And somehow that got passed down. And so as advice goes, it's that do whatever needs to be done. And so it's, see if I don't know if this will show up on the camera, but to this day, whenever somebody, can you see that?
Yeah.
Those are my alarms. So I'll get up at whatever time I have to get up to work. If somebody wants, when I started seeing clients at 5 a.m. decades ago, I met a guy and I said, when do you want to train? And he said, early in the morning. And I said, okay, how early? And he said, well, how early are you willing to come in? And I said, just name a time. And so that's one of the biggest pieces of advice. It's do whatever you need to do, take clients wherever, whenever. Um, Once you're successful, then you can start curating. What do you charge? What's your schedule? What do you want your lifestyle to look like? But you got to hustle for a while. And so I would give myself that advice. And I just have the good fortune that when I look back, that's kind of the way I approached everything. I remember the first gym I worked at was open 24 hours. And the fitness department was like, we got a woman who wants to come in at like 4 a.m. or something. She's having insomnia issues. She's stressed out. And I was just like, I'll do it. So I'd go in, train her, go back to bed, come back. And, it's just do whatever needs to be done.
That's great advice, brother. That's great advice. There is a lot of hustle that happens in the beginning. A lot of hustle that needs to happen in the beginning. I'm sure the work you're doing now doesn't even compare to how hard you had to work when you first started.
Yeah, or certainly at times over the years, and being ready. I'm comfortable relative to having business success now. My business is usually full. I don't have big downturns, but like COVID hit and I work 4 days a week. I was instantly 7 days a week. Anybody who wanted to train anytime, anywhere, if I had my home gym in the back of my truck, I will come to you. So it was right back to the hustle for
Yeah.
survival. And there's never a moment of like, I'm above that. And every once in a while, like we'll have a new client come in and they're like, I only want to pay X and it's way below what I charge. It's below what nobody wants to take them. And if that hour is free, it's like, that's still a lot of money. It may not be what I charge. I'll take that person. So you just got to do what needs to be done. And,
So you'll take
and you're never too good to not have to hustle.
so you'll take somebody below your regular rate.
It's rare, but it's happened for the sake of service. Even though I'm at a facility where we're all independent, we had a period many years ago where somebody who worked here would do all the new client intake. So the staff would get an email saying, we have this person, they want to train these days and times, who's available, who wants them. You respond, and that person would pair clients up with people. And this is the last time I remember it happening, but the email went out a couple times and they couldn't get the person placed, and I had the time open. And in my mind, even though this facility is all independent trainers, we're all running our own business, it is a reflection on the facility as a whole. And so I didn't want a negative reflection on the facility that this person could not get a trainer. So I took him. And now the person's a great friend. It's been fantastic for all these years.
I think what I hear a lot in my industry, right, is a lot about how they don't want to, like a lot of people would take zero over taking that client for less their rate, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I see so many massage therapists specifically. I'm not that well like in your arena, but massage therapists and service providers who are not busy, right? They literally have no clients. Let's say they charge $80 an hour, and somebody's like, I'll do 50. And they're
Mm-hmm.
like, no,
Yeah.
it's 80 or it's nothing. But these people will come to me literally struggling financially, desperate for money. And they're telling me because there's other practitioners who are typically successful now telling them, don't do that, don't devalue your service, know your worth, this type of talk that would so many people would tell them not to do what you just said you would do, even at the success that you're at now.
Yeah. And I think one of the issues that comes up is I think it's often grounded in ego. As a analogous example, I have a structure where if I'm going on vacation, I will ask other trainers to cover my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an idea I came up with where the trainer asks other trainers to cover their clients. They pay them. The client still pays their original trainer to make that seamless. The trainer pays the trainer who did the coverage, but they don't pay them the full amount. That way the trainer who's on vacation can still make some money. And the other
Mm.
trainer, though, fills an hour that they wouldn't have had filled. And I know trainers who are like, I'm not going to work for that much. But it's like you need to compare that to zero, because you're available and you would have gotten zero. And instead, you're going to get a chunk of change. So, I think that's just ego, that, I'm worth more than that, or I'm not working for that little. And they're significant sums of money. It's significantly higher than the typical hourly wage that somebody might make at a wage earning job. So it's really just ego that drives that. And I have a hard time with that, because again, it undermines providing great service for a client to know when I'm out of town, you're still going to be taken care of and I will coordinate it all. But also, if I have a free hour and you say, want to walk my dog and I'll pay you X, like that's more money than I would have made if I didn't do anything that hour. So
Thank you, Pete.
that's sort of the hustle mindset, I think.
I battle this mindset on a semi daily basis.
Mm-hmm. And you do
Semi.
get to a level of success where you can call your shots, but it takes a long time to get there. And then I think you should still be gracious along the way. And if you're at a level where you are successful and you can call your shots, then you may also have the flexibility when that person says, like, I train a lot of young athletes and the parents say, oh, we just can't afford. And it's like, that athlete needs training. So can you afford it if I do? Okay. And whether it's early in my career and I don't have a full business and I should just take any business I can get, or I'm successful and I'm full, so financially I can afford the hit of not getting that last little chunk of hourly wage. Either way, I think maybe it's just good karma, but it's good service. It's
Yeah, but
being a good.
I'm sure you use a little bit of discernment, right? Like there's moments that you feel like it's not just anyone, right? It's might be felt called to help that person,
Yeah, it's not
right?
just a person who wants to negotiate because they negotiate everything in their
Right.
life. because that's
Right.
also part of my business is it, training historically at gyms, it's a negotiation. And it's like, why? When you go to others, if you go typically for a massage, it's like, there's the rates, but you go for
Mhm.
training and it's like, here's my rate. Well, how about for 3 sessions? Then for some reason, my business has always had negotiation as part of it. And I don't know why. So there is an element of this is what I charge, take it or leave it. And then to your comment, I can be discerning about this person has a real need. And there's
Yeah.
been people where I'm not going to charge you anything. You need this. And that has certainly happened in my career because I feel like it's important enough that they get training for whatever reason.
I love that, man. I love that. And I think with that, I think that's a good place to end for today, man. Thank you so much for jumping on, brother. I think this was a really great conversation, and I think I hope a lot of people get value out of this. I mean, learning from somebody like you who's had the level of success that you've had. So thank you so much for being here, brother.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to talk to you as always, Michael.
Is there anything that you want to promote or to have people like where can people find you?
ifpfit.com, indigofrankpaul.com, ifpfit.com. That's it. But yeah, I don't need them to find me for anything. If they want help, they can go there and get in touch with me, and I'll be happy to have a phone call with them or have a chat.
Do you do coaching?
I do. Yes, I do coaching, not as a business thing. I do coaching as a giving back to, my industry. So I'll give talks and I'll just put my phone number up and say, text me if you want to get in touch and have questions. So same thing.
I love
If
it,
all of a
brother.
sudden it's a booming business, then maybe I'll turn it into a business. But at this point in my career, it's just a great way to give back before I wrap things up.
You're an inspiration, Pete. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you, sir. It's great talking with you as always. And hopefully we'll chat again soon.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Unreasonable Life podcast. And stay tuned for the next episode. This will be up